The economic boom of the post-war period benefited the white teenagers of America as much as their parents. These children of the baby boom had expendable incomes from babysitting, mowing lawns, and allowances.
Parents gave their kids money, and kids had opportunities to make money. So they had money to buy records. They had money to buy clothes.
With the use of transistors in radios, music became completely portable. Kids could listen to their music without disturbing parents, and they could listen to it anywhere they wanted, in their bedrooms or on the street.
They had access to an automobile, which was unusual. There were radios in the cars, so all of a sudden this music became the soundtrack for a very large and affluent group of people.
The music on that soundtrack was the hot new sound of rock and roll. In post-war America, black recording artists, many of them blues performers, created a style of music they called rhythm and blues, a musical hybrid of blues, country boogie, gospel, and big band jazz. When rhythm and blues added electric guitars to the mix, a new sound was born.
The roots of rock and roll come from a lot of different areas. I think the biggest one is rhythm and blues, which was a very popular form of music with African Americans, hadn't quite crossed over to mainstream America, so that's one of the reasons why it sounded so new to most people.
Traditional jazz also contributed to the sound of rock and roll, with the saxophone and stand-up bass, especially in the early days of the new sound. Saxophone solos were often heard long before guitar solos became popular.
The other influence, too, is American folk music and bluegrass, traditional country and western. Hank Williams Sr., artists like that, Flatt and Scruggs, big influence on some of the rockabilly stuff.
In 1953, Cleveland disc jockey Alan Freed played this new kind of music, this so-called Negro music, for his white teenaged listeners. It instantly became wildly popular. Thinking the new sensation needed a name, Freed coined the term rock and roll, and it stuck. Soon, DJs in other cities around the nation jammed the AM radio waves with the new music. If one person could be given the credit for inventing rock and roll, Chuck Berry is probably the one. Berry mixed all the right ingredients, country western guitar licks and a rhythm and blues tune with lyrics about fast cars and good-looking women. While he had been performing rock and roll songs for a few years, Berry's first mainstream hit, Maybelline, only came in the summer of 1955, when he crossed the color line and became a huge success with white audiences. Richard Penniman, using the stage name Little Richard, crossed over to white audiences with songs like Tutti Frutti, Lucille, and Good Golly Miss Molly. Sporting makeup and an extreme pompadour, this gospel singer from Georgia electrified his audiences in outrageous live shows. As the popularity of the music grew, white musicians co-opted the style but toned down the sexuality for a mainstream audience. Music stores were flooded with dozens of new recordings. In 1954, Bill Haley and the Comets released Rock Around the Clock. An immediate hit, the song was adopted as an unofficial anthem of the very first rock and roll generation. Not everyone was captivated by the sound of rock and roll. Many adults, especially those with conservative religious backgrounds, protested the spread of this new music. They claimed it was ruining the youth of America by overexciting their libidos with its hard-driving rhythms, suggestive lyrics, and the wild dancing brought on by the music. The anti-rock and roll movement, however, was never strong enough to stop the swelling tide of the new sound. As quickly as its popularity grew, rock and roll just as rapidly became part of youth culture in the 50s and American culture in general, especially when a 19-year-old truck driver from Memphis started recording.
It was Sam Phillips at Sun Records who said, this is legendary, he said, if I could find a white man that sang like a black man, I'd make $1 million. And it wasn't a racist remark, it was just saying that if I could find somebody who'd sing with that energy, that amount of sexual tension, and that comedic sense, too, that was in rhythm and blues, he knew that he would have a winner.
Phillips found that winner. His name was Elvis Aaron Presley. Elvis Presley recorded his first song, That's All Right, in 1954. He combined a bluesy country boogie style with hard-driving rhythms and distinct vocals. Even though the record wasn't a huge success, his live performances with swinging hips and bedroom eyes won many fans. By 1956, Elvis had 3 hits on the record charts: Hound Dog, Don't Be Cruel, and Heartbreak Hotel. His slurring, sexy vocal style became his trademark and earned him the title King of Rock and Roll. But Presley had to temporarily give up his throne when, in 1958, Uncle Sam tapped him on the shoulder.
Pulling into Brooklyn was a very important person, none other than Elvis Presley, Private Presley, soldier nowadays in Uncle Sam's service. No wonder the fans and an army of pressmen were on hand. This was indeed an occasion. The rock and roll king was about to embark for foreign service, 18 months in Germany. How the army would stand the impact of Mr. Presley was a big question months ago, but not now, as Elvis explains.
Elvis, since you've been in the Army, have the boys given you kind of a rough time in the barracks because of your past career, would you say?
No, sir, I was very surprised. I've never met a better group of boys in my life. They probably would have if it'd been like everybody thought. I mean, everybody thought I wouldn't have to work and I would be given special treatment and this and that. But when they looked around and saw I was on KP and I was pulling guard and everything just like they were, well, they figured, well, he's just like us.
When he's demobbed, Elvis hopes to develop his talent as a movie actor. Meanwhile, it's the army for Elvis the Pelvis.
When the film industry realized that America's youth had time on their hands and money in their pockets, they produced movies marketed directly to teenagers.
Never before has man been transformed into such hideous proportions. Never have teenage girls been subjected to the terrifying ordeal in the fantastic room of torture.
We saw the rise of the youth movies, the biker movies, the beach movies that came out, rock and roll movies, and movies featuring big Hollywood talent like James Dean, Montgomery Clift, and Marlon Brando, people that youth culture were able to relate to and to kind of adopt as their icons and the people that express their values and their sense of society and culture.
Marlon Brando starred in a 1954 film, The Wild One, as the leader of a motorcycle gang. Brando brought a complexity and vulnerability to the character, an angry young man rebelling against social forces he couldn't fully comprehend. As an actor, Brando had already made his mark in the stage and film versions of A Streetcar Named Desire when he starred in another landmark film, On the Waterfront.
I better get you home. There's too many guys around here with only one thing in their mind. Am I going to see you again? What for?
On the Waterfront received the Academy Award for Best Picture, and Brando earned the Best Actor award. His naturalistic acting meshed brilliantly with the film's realistic writing and cinematography to create a character with whom everyday Americans could identify. Brando set the benchmark for those who sought to enter the hallowed ground of teen idols. And he gave teenagers a new uniform to wear: motorcycle jacket, t-shirt, and blue jeans. Of all the actors who admired and emulated Brando, only one achieved icon status of his own: James Dean. His hypnotic, gritty performance of a troubled teenager in Rebel Without a Cause made him an instant star. Dean was the loner who could be tough but tender, an actor whose characters shunned society and cried out for understanding in the same smoldering look or briefly muttered line. His roles epitomized the moodiness, anger, and alienation of his generation, and the desire to break free from mundane existence. Dean made only 2 other films, East of Eden and Giant, before his life ended at the age of 24. On September 30th, 1955, Dean collided with another car when driving his beloved sports car, a Porsche Spyder, on a California road. In contrast to Brando and Dean stood the all-time blonde bombshell Marilyn Monroe. Her innocent, natural, and overt sexuality made her the indisputable sex goddess of the decade. Achieving stardom in 1953 with Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Monroe was adoringly contrary on screen. Innocent one minute, naughty the next, she was always desirable in films like Niagara, Bus Stop, and The 7-Year Itch. Although she longed to be taken seriously as an actress, Marilyn Monroe's legacy rested on roles that lionized her as the American male's favorite sexual fantasy.